Hello everyone, my name is Ibukun Akemi Aleshiloye, and welcome to another session of solving DSA questions with trying to get a better understanding of DSA. Okay, so today we're going to be working on another problem, and we'll be taking a totally different approach than what we've taken so far. So far, we've tried to pick specific algorithm, either a specific algorithm or a specific concept, like when we talk about the big O and when we talk about the bubble sort. But today we're going to be talking, we're going to focus especially on trying to solve a problem using two different programming languages. And the two languages we'll be using today are Python and JavaScript. Now, the focus of this video is to let you understand that the same problems can be solved in several languages. That's basically what it's trying to tell you. Algorithms are not language specific. Algorithms are not language specific. They can be implemented using any different language, any language at all, as long as you understand the logic behind it, and the steps and processes that it will take you to solve it. There's one more thing you need to know, is that language is basically syntax based. What that means is that most of the programming languages, what differentiates one programming language for the other programming language is basically just basically like the way it is written, or say some certain concepts that are that are specific to that language. But all programming language are basically the same. They do the same job. They allow us to build programs and write code and better solve problems. So let's get down right to it. We'll be solving the RGB to HEX conversion problem on Code Wars. So if you go to Code Wars and look for this problem right here, you should be able to see it here. And it says that the RGB function is incomplete. And what we're supposed to do is to complete it by passing in RGB decimal values, which will result in hexadecimal representation being returned. So what that simply means is that once we're given a value like this, it should return something like this. So I'm just going to show you a simple example of an RGB, what the RGB and the hexadecimal are supposed to be. So we're just going to do a little Google search, and we're going to search for no, let me just not do a Google search. I'm just going to inspect this page now. And after inspecting this page, what I'm simply going to do is I'm going to pick a specific element that has colors. So let's say, what specific element am I picking? Yeah, this guy. Okay, so that guy has a color. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you the difference between the RGB and the hexadecimal. So this is the hexadecimal representation of this particular color that is selected. So the RGB representation of it is 212, 212, and 216. So each color and the colors in this color palette have a representation, are represented using these values. So that is just like a simple explanation of what exactly we're supposed to do. So they will give us something like this: 212, 212, and 216, and we are supposed to convert it to this now. Yeah. Okay, so now that we've seen exactly what it is that we are doing, let's get right to it. So it says that valid decimal values for RGB are 0 to 255. So I think from this now, we can simply deduce that we are going to check that the values are valid RGB values. And it says any values that falls out of that range must be rounded to the closest Verli value. Okay, so that is one of the first things that we are supposed to do. And the next thing says your answer should be 6 characters long, and the shorthand will not work here. So basically, we're supposed to return something like this, or something like this, 6 characters long. Okay, so let's get started. So the first thing we want to do is actually check that these values are valid RGB values. And to simply do that, since it's Python, not JavaScript, to simply do that, so I'm just going to remove this, write your code here just because I can. So to simply do that, what we're going to do is we're going to ensure that the minimum value and the maximum value in that the user will be giving to us does not exceed between 0 and 255. So what that simply means is that basically we're going to define a control method to ensure that our values are not beyond that range. So what I'm going to do is, we're going to say the value of R will be equal to, then there's a function in Python called max, and we're going to say the maximum value should be between 0 and the minimum, which is 255. Which is 255, and we'll pass in R. So this is simply saying that let the maximum value be between 0 and the value of the minimum. So we're saying the maximum value should be between 0 and 255. So we're going to do the same for green, color green, and say max 0 and the minimum, which is 255, bracket of G. And we're going to say B, which is blue, goes to max and 0 and minimum of 255 B. Okay, so now that we've checked that our values are valid, the next thing to do is to actually do our conversion. So I'm just going to remove this pass here. And the reason why, I'm not wrapping this in curly braces is because in Python code checks validity or the validity of your function, or the functions in Python are written with indentation instead of curly braces, unlike JavaScript. So the next thing to do will be simply to run our conversion, which is, let me just move this back so I can start my comment again. Just going to put in an hash symbol and say to convert decimal values to hexadecimals. Decimal strings. So this is what we know about converting an RGB value to a decimal, to an hexadecimal values, to the equivalent hexadecimal values, is that to convert an RGB value to an hexadecimal value, we need to divide the decimal by the base of 16. Then we need to take the quotient and the remainder. Now the quotient will give us the first value of the X value, and the remainder will give us the second digit of the X value. For example, if you want to convert the 183 from the RGB value, which is the decimal value, to X value, we divide it by 16. Now the quotient is 11 because 16 times 11 equals to 176, and the remainder will be 7. So the X value will be B7, basically because 11 is represented by B in the X index in X, right? B, and 7 is represented by 7. So you would also need this little table here in order to understand the conversion, the conversion, to convert between the types. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to implement this concept. That is it, basically this, we're going to write this mathematical concept. We're going to convert it to logic in our code. So in Python, we can simply use the string formatter to simply change them, to simply type convert our decimal values to hexadecimal string. And we can just simply say x underscore values, or rather value, equals to what? We'll start by opening a string, and we'll say dot format. And inside that string, we're going to pass in R, G, and B. That is after we are done validating that these values are correct. So inside of this string now, we're going to open 3 curly braces for each value of our hexadecimal, for each value of our RGB. So we're going to say in each of the curly braces, we're going to say colon O2. That is to simply specify that it should format this in 2 places, and simply X. And what X means is that it should simply convert this value, whatever it is that is plugged in here, that is this guy, to what? To the hexadecimal uppercase correspondent of this. And you should do it in at least 2 places. So we're going to do the same thing for the rest of them. We're going to say is to O2 and the value of X, and O2 no is to O2 and the value of X. So when we're done, what we simply want to do is return the value of X. So this is the simple solution for this problem. So I'm simply going to test that this code actually works. Now that we're not just writing code for the sake of writing code, we need to actually test that it actually does what it is that it's supposed to do.